If you're enjoying Pigoted Podcast, why not sign up to our Patreon? You can get access to loads of extra stuff. You get access to extra episodes every single week. You get access to giveaways that we do. We've done giveaways on rum, giveaways on NFTs, loads of sponsorship stuff. You get access to the Discord community. You get early access on episodes that are being released. You get to ask questions to our guests. There's loads of extra stuff that you get, and it starts from just £1 a week, £4 a month. Think about it this way. Would you miss an episode of Pigoted if we didn't release one? Yeah? Well, would you miss £1 if it went out of your bank account? No? Well then, get yourself signed up to our Patreon, because by supporting the podcast, you're helping to make it possible. You're helping to pay for all of the recording space and all of the equipment. So please, if you do enjoy the podcast, check out the Patreon. You get loads of extra benefits, and a big thank you from me. Enjoy the podcast. This week's podcast is brought to you by Window World. Window World are the home of rock bottom prices on all of your UPVC windows, doors and conservatories. Right now they're doing a very special deal where you can get 8 windows and 2 doors for only £2,495. So if you're thinking about getting new windows or doors, if you want to upgrade yourself for 2022, then get yourself down to windowworldupvc.co.uk or give them a call on 0151 531 0056. That's Window World, the home of great quality windows and doors. Welcome to Pigoted Podcast. Thank you ever so much for listening, because we've had a couple of weeks break, and the reason being is because I ran myself into the ground and was knackered and needed a break. We needed a restart. We needed a little gap just to sort of reassess ourselves. And what we have done is we have brought on a fucking actual co-host, Dr. Cat Ford.
Yeah, I'm a doctor now.
Dr. Dr. Cat Ford.
I'm qualified to co-host a little podcast.
Yeah. For ages, she was like, "Can I co-host it?" And I was like, "I'm just looking for someone."
Qualified.
Yeah, just after someone with a doctorate to talk fucking shit with. God forbid that I talk shit with a layman. No. So how has being a doctor changed your life?
Not at all.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Well, I mean, not yet. I mean, so it was the 21st of March that I passed my Viva, which is the point at which they go, yeah, okay, you can call yourself doctor now.
Yeah.
I still need to do some minor corrections to my thesis.
Yeah.
And then that's over. And so it's basically just a case of looking for jobs.
You waiting for the bit where someone collapses in a restaurant and they go, "Is anyone a doctor?" And you go, "Well, technically."
No, I know somebody who's kind of had that happen to them.
Really?
They had a PhD in engineering.
Yeah.
And they were going on an international work trip.
Yeah.
And their employer booked their plane ticket for them.
Yeah.
And so they were on the manifest as Dr. Blah-de-blah.
Yeah.
That's his name as well.
Dr. Blah-de-blah.
Dr. Blah-de-blah.
Irish. You shrunk then because you were like, that doesn't work. Should be Dr. O Blah-de-blah.
Well, I was sort of thinking, I mean, do we still take the piss out the Irish? Is that okay? But let's not open that box.
Let me die on that hill on my own.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically, when I pull that face, it means I disagree with you, but can't be bothered having the conversation.
I'm going to look forward to seeing that face.
You'll see it a lot.
12 times a podcast. So he was on the plane.
He was on a plane, and one of the air stewardesses, I can't remember. What's the term? Sky servant.
Sky servant.
Flight attendant. One of the flight attendants.
One of the air bitches.
Came up to her and was like, "Oh, there's I see on the manifest you're a doctor. There's somebody having a medical emergency." Not that kind of doctor. Sorry.
Yeah. However, should you need a bridge designing?
Basically. Anyway, so they died. I don't actually know.
Yeah, he's having a medical emergency. Yeah, I'm not really that guy. Yeah, he's having a panic attack because he can't design a more efficient vacuum cleaner. She'll be there in a minute. Oh, fucking hell. I'm glad that I'm not a doctor. I don't want that pressure on my life.
What? I feel like I can let my stupid out a lot more now.
Because it's justified.
Well, because basically, I've got my PhD. I've proven I'm obviously not a complete imbecile.
Yeah, you're very smart at something.
Yeah. So now it's like I feel like I can let my guard down a bit. I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore.
Really?
In theory. Let's see how long that lasts.
Okay. Well, let's have a chat about the most recent goings on in the world. And you said before this, you went, I think we're going to disagree on this.
To an extent, I don't think we're going to be completely, but I think
I'm very much one way on this, and you can probably easily tell which way I'm going to be. Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no way that I'm going to. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the infamous Will Smith Oscar bitch slap. Now, when I heard it on the news, I physically could not believe it. Like, I couldn't, but I honestly thought that it was some sort of prank, some sort of, like, it took me ages to process it. I thought it was, and do you know what's weird is, I was listening to LBC, James O'Brien, and he was like, I don't know how much I should care about this. And I was like, oh, a lot, James. You should care a lot. I was.
Wow. So we're even going to disagree on that.
Yeah, I was very passionate about it.
Like, two rich people had a bit of a Barney at a big party.
But I think that that's being like almost sort of necessary, like reductive on purpose, almost, because you have to be able to see sort of the wider implications for it. And now maybe I'm looking at because we're looking at this differently, because if somebody slaps a comedian, it doesn't really have an impact on your life an awful lot. Whereas for me, as a full-time professional comedian, it sends a bit of a fucking precedent. Do you know what I mean? And I'm somebody who has been attacked on stage several times. like genuinely, how many times? Okay, so 2 that I can think of. Yeah, off the top of my head, at least twice. So yeah, it's one of those. For me personally, I cannot believe that it happened. I cannot believe that that people were like, oh well, he was absolutely right to slap him. It was mate, the outpouring of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
If someone was talking about my wife in that way, I'd stab him, rip his eyes out, and bum him to death. Would you? Would you really, Keith? Because you're 64 and you've got a bad hip. What are you on about? You know, it was like it was like people thought. And well, look, I tell you what else did my head in as well is the use of language in order to slightly manipulate what went on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people who were sort of anti-Will Smith were like, they called it like serious physical assault. And it's like, not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people who were anti-Chris Rock was like, he made a joke about a woman with an autoimmune disease. And it's like, it's alopecia, it's not age.
I think both of those things are right, though.
No, but
like, so on the one hand, like, I don't want to say it was just a slap, because ultimately, like, that is physical assault. Like,
also as well, he's a big lad.
Well,
Chris
yeah,
Rock's tiny.
That's one of the things that. So you know, in the clips where Will Smith is holding his Oscar, I'm like, fucking actually, the hands on that man.
Have you seen?
Jesus, like fucking shovels.
Have you seen professional slap championships?
Yes.
Where it's just too big. Like,
I can't watch them for long.
It's too big. It's Eastern European people usually, isn't it? It's not like that's the demographic.
Yeah.
And just massive, hairy. They look like me if I was twice as big in every regard, and they just slap each other like that.
I quite like it because especially a slap is generally seen as like a kind of a feminine attack, like a
Yeah.
slap rather than a punch.
Yeah,
and then seeing two really blokey blokes, like, are they men or have you just shaved a bear? Like, just like, whoosh.
Yeah.
It's quite fun. But so there's the size difference between Will Smith.
You've just got me thinking about how to make those championships even more fun, which is round 2 to let them just have a go at each other with one stilettoed heel. Fuck off.
Do some fucking damage with
Hey,
those things.
Fucking don't fuck about. Honestly, right? Like, I have seen so many fights on nights out and stuff.
Yeah.
And when men fight, they square up to each other in like an almost sort of badge of honour. Yeah, come on here, come on here. Yeah, I'm going to pop you in the nose, see? Do you know what I mean? And they'll kind of do that around the town centre. Like that. Whereas women go, okay, where are the weapons? Let me glass everyone in sight. They just lose that shit.
Yeah. I mean, neither are nice to see. But yeah, so also, I think this. So, not to diminish the slap.
Yeah.
It was, air quotes, just a slap.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who trained hard for when he portrayed Muhammad Ali.
Famous slapper.
Yeah. One of the most famous slappers.
Yeah.
More of a fisty slap, though.
Float like a butterfly, slap like a Yorkshire housewife. I don't know, that's a stereotype. It just sounded like it in my head. I just ran with it.
I feel like a Yorkshire housewife would get you harder than with a slap. Like, she'd boil you with her tea. Like, in the kettle. Fucking prick. How dare
She'd boil you with a tea, but then you'd be like, ow! Delicious, though. Really nice. It's just earthier, I just like it.
I'm going to get cancelled in Yorkshire. Oh, well. I like it there.
They'll not be coming round these parts again, girl. You're like, what? Sorry? Sorry, who? Take you ages to understand that you're not welcome there.
Yeah.
So you were saying it's just a slap.
Yeah.
However, he is a big dude.
Yeah, so he could have done a lot more damage.
Yeah.
And so there's something about it being a single slap as opposed to him completely kicking the shit out of him that makes me think it looks almost like there's something more warning about it, which in a way is more menacing.
I don't think that it's important, the level of attack.
Yeah.
I think what's important is the fact that somebody deemed it appropriate to go on stage and attack somebody for doing their job. Now, people are going, well, he shouldn't have made those jokes about his wife. And it's like, you don't understand the Oscars. Like, the whole shtick with the Oscars, and it has been for years, is it's a roast. It's an organised roast. That's what it is. Because without that, nobody watches the Oscars. Because nobody wants to watch a bunch of rich, successful, mainly white people, or at least it was in the fucking 90s or whatever, a bunch of rich, successful, mainly white people give awards to other rich, successful, mainly white people, and they realised that the ratings were going off a cliff. So they reinvented it. Obviously, it's become more diverse, which is a very good thing, but they reinvented the way the Oscars were delivered, and they turned it into a roast. They got comedians in, and the ratings went up, and every time people were like, oh, I can't believe he said that joke, can't believe he said that. So now it's at the point where it's expected. Yeah. And I think that Will Smith must have known. Like, there's no way that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett didn't know that they were going to get picked on. And if you look at as well, people forget that Amy Schumer was on either directly before or directly after Chris Rock, I can't remember. No, directly before. And did jokes about how many times Jada's cheated on him and stuff like that, which is very insulting, it's very offensive, it's very emasculating. Could you imagine the outrage if Will Smith went up and slapped her? It'd be huge. He'd never work in Hollywood ever again.
Only because it was filmed.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Let's not pretend anybody actually gives that much of a shit.
Yeah, only because it was filmed and the entire world saw it. If it was just...
If it was on a casting couch, do what the fuck you like,
If it was
mate.
just something that happened on Tuesday,
Yeah.
it was just... But
Yeah.
go on.
Right, so to the point of, like, it doesn't matter how aggressive or how much damage the attack did. It's the fact that it was an attack.
Yeah.
To some extent, I agree.
Yeah.
But in the rest of our lives, we do, like, talk about violence in a graded way.
Okay.
Like, there is a difference between assault and, like, serious assault, like, like grievous bodily harm and all the way up. So, like, to some extent, it does matter. But I get what you mean about, like, the message of it is that the amount of violence doesn't matter because of the message.
Sure, it's a
Like, I see
context
that
thing.
point.
It's a context
Yeah.
thing for me. It's like if you worked at McDonald's, right? And you went, oh my God, Sarah was doing the fucking tills yesterday and she got attacked. You know, you wouldn't be like, oh, it was only a slap or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd be like, the fact of it being an attack is the shocking, appalling bit.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't really matter whether or not he was, whether or not he was slapped or whether or not he was punched 5 times and left a bloodied mess on the floor. The fact that a celebrity thinks it's appropriate and acceptable to go on stage and to attack somebody because they've said something they don't like sets the worst precedent going.
I think... So also you're saying, that celebrity thought it was acceptable and appropriate. Did he? Has everything you've ever done in your life, has that always been acceptable and appropriate? Or have you occasionally done something and afterwards gone, that was a fucking idiot thing to do?
Sure, no, I get
Like-
that. But it was a long walk.
It was a long walk, and it wasn't a jump out of his seat, run and launch at him.
That's what I would
But
have...
at the same time, like, and so people say, well, he clearly hasn't lost control because look how calm the whole thing is.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, loss of control doesn't always look like an absolute losing your shit.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, if I think to some of the times where I've been at my absolute angriest, I know from the outside, like, I've looked disturbingly calm.
Yeah.
And like, it's a story I'll tell you at some point, possibly not on air.
Okay.
I might need to check the legality of some of it.
Amazing.
No,
I always
not
love it when
really.
someone starts the story like that. But do you remember when you used to piss your mum off at, like, when you were a kid? Like, if she was shouting and screaming, you'd be like, whatever. But when they're eerily calm and you've pissed them off,
Yes, yeah.
that's terrifying.
Yeah, so there's a chance that, like, so there's a whole amount of stuff that we don't know what went on in Will Smith's head at the time.
No.
So, like, while we're talking about context of, like, no, a man doing his job shouldn't get hit for doing his job.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair thing to say. Mm-hmm. But also, there's a lot of context as far as, like, what happened there? Like, why did Will Smith behave in that way? It doesn't necessarily mean that he thinks that slapping a comedian for
Yeah.
upsetting you is appropriate.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. You see
Yeah.
how, like, I mean, maybe I come at this again at a different angle in that I know, having worked up and down the comedy clubs for 12 years, I know how bad security at comedy clubs is.
Yeah.
It's not like a nightclub, like, where they have 12 bouncers on. They usually have, like, one old man who's like, hello, I'm the one old man. And you're like, mate, if that stag do kicks off at me, what are you really going to do?
Yeah.
Well,
Or sometimes the MC is also the bouncer. Like,
Exactly.
you know.
And it's there are times where you're like, fuck this. I had a dude. So here's the 2 times that I can think of off the top of my head where I've been squared up at on stage. So the first time was at a gig in Lee, near Wigan, where I was doing a gig and it was going really well, and I was really pleased with how well I was doing. And a group of young lads, one of whom's mate had, like, something up with him syndrome. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was...
Yeah, all right.
You know what I mean,
There's a lot
though.
of that about in Lee.
Yeah. He was one of those like defo set 8 kids, like your classroom was a shed at the bottom
So
of the
I thought
field.
you were coming for the deaf as well then.
No.
Like it's a fucking defo. Like, whoa. All right. I mean, it is a podcast.
Yeah, if you are going to offend them.
It doesn't mean it's okay, you know?
Unfortunately, this goes on YouTube as well, so it gets captioned, and so they'll read it and go,
Do you have a P.O. box address for people to send complaints into?
no, we have a physical address for this, but I'm not giving it for complaint.
No.
You can't be asked with like Santa's sack. Just got one here from a little boy in Lapland. Says that you've been very naughty. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been taking the piss out of defos. No, so basically his mates sort of corralled him into storming the stage and squaring up to me, right? And they were like, he's taking the piss out of you there. And I clearly wasn't. I was like addressing the room. But this guy was like, you know, his mates were like, why don't you get up and fucking smash him? Do you know what I mean? And the kid's like, you know, he's very easily manipulated, you know. Paddy Considine's brother in Dead Man's Shoes or what, like that sort of friendship. You know
Don't know the reference, but okay, carry on.
You've never seen Dead Man's Shoes?
No.
Oh my God. Let's fuck this off and watch it. Dead Man's Shoes is amazing.
Okay.
Are you a film person?
Yeah.
Honestly, you have to watch.
Okay.
It's great.
All right, I'll
So
make a mental note. Anyway.
he is. So this kid gets on stage, right, and the audience can tell just by looking at him that he's got something wrong with him syndrome. Do you know what I mean? And he's squaring up to me on stage, and he's sort of doing that thing that sort of like pseudo-aggressive lads do, where they sort of like chest bump into,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm going like, okay, what are my options here? Okay. Option 1, I let myself get punched in the face by somebody with probable learning difficulties. Or option 2, I punch a person with learning difficulties in front of 100 locals in Lee. Neither of these look good.
Yeah.
So it got very tense, very heated. He didn't get physical with me, but he looked as though he was about, I'd say, 15 seconds before he was going to throw a punch, and the promoter and the venue manager managed to get him off stage and get rid of him. So that was a close call. And then I had another guy at Southampton Jongleurs. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Southampton before.
No.
No, it's everything that you dream of and more.
Okay.
Here's how bad Southampton is. That night I was staying in a Ibis budget hotel, and I didn't even know those existed. But apparently that's for people who look at the regular Ibis and go, oh, fancy. So it was horrific. You know, when you go into a hotel room and you go, it smells of bleach in here. Have you cleaned everything, or have you just sort of gone round with a wipe? It felt like that. It was gross. But I did this gig, right, and it was just a dreadful gig. And this guy suddenly he stands up. I was only about 4 or 5 years in, I'd say. This guy stands up, right? He's a fully grown man. He stands up and he goes, "You're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit. You're shit." And then he was kind of expecting everyone to sort of join in his chant. And then there was just a nothing that happened because everyone was like, what? And I went, what are you doing, mate? I said, you're a grown man. I said, just sit down. I said, I'll be gone in 10 minutes. And he went, "You're shit, and you know you are. You're shit."
All right, so he thought the problem might have been the tune, not the message.
Yeah. That's what he thought.
Oh, these guys don't know that song. Let's try another.
It needs mixing up a little bit. No, they'll all agree that he's shit. It's just how you get that across to the people. So he started chanting, and I went, "What are you doing, mate?" I said, "You're embarrassing your other half." I said, she looks embarrassed to be with you. I wasn't like, hey, your mum is so fat that she couldn't get into things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like that. I was just like, why don't you just sit down, stop embarrassing your other half, let me finish the show. I know it's not great, but you're hardly helping matters, are you? So why don't you just sit down, and just keep quiet, and I'll be gone in 10 minutes because, your other half, that lady that you're with there, she seems to be really upset by your behaviour. And he went fucking booloo, right? He starts reaching for like pint glasses and stuff to come on stage and glass me, right? And she's pulling him back. No, Darren, leave it, Darren, and he's like, rah, rah, rah. So he grabs the first thing that he can find, right? Which just so
Please
happens...
tell me it's her handbag.
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
It is a handful of, those small ketchup packet condiments.
Yeah.
Right. So he walks up to the stage, right, and launches a handful of ketchup packets. And they all miss. But they all miss by like 4 or 5 feet. Yeah. Like, he's so pissed. He walks up to me and he throws them at almost a 90-degree angle. Like yeah. One of those ketchup packets went out for a throw-in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how far away it went, right? And I went, bear in mind, everyone's watching this. I went, could you make yourself look like any more of a dickhead than what you do right now? I said, if you've done embarrassing yourself, just sit down, I'll finish this, and then we can all get on about our lives. How about that? Well, at this point, he's lost the fucking plot, right? And so he grabs a pint glass and he makes his way onto the stage, right? Now, the stage is Southampton Jongleurs. The stage is quite high, so he's got about 6 steps to get there.
Right.
Now, I had a beer with me on stage. I had a bottle of Peroni, and I was like, I'm going to have to glass him in the face because, like, there's no way that this guy is coming up here with a pint glass.
To have a drink.
Yeah. Listen, sir, I don't care for your material.
Yeah.
And then sit him back down. Like he's obviously going to hit me with that, and that'll really do some damage. And so the only thing that I can do to protect myself is to be the first one in. And so we went... He gets up on the stage, right? Is really pissed. He's so pissed, I think he forgets he has a pint glass on me, right? Swings a punch at me, misses, and then the bouncer comes at this point, and it's one bouncer, right? And he is like, when you get those bouncers who are only bouncers by virtue of the fact that they are the fattest person in the town.
Right.
They go, that'll do,
You can block a door.
Yeah. They don't use them as a physical deterrent. More of it is like a cork in a wine bottle. Where they just wedge you in the door and you just,
nope.
No one can come in.
Not in them shoes.
Are they trainers? No. So he throws him off stage, and then afterwards, I had to leave by a different exit because he'd been out there for 2 hours waiting to fight me. Like he'd been out there for the whole, from 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock. He'd been out on his own, getting angrier and angrier, just waiting to fight me.
You'd think he'd at least sober up in that time and start going, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah.
I'm in Southampton.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just go home. Oh shit, I literally had another one recently where a guy threatened to fight me in a car park. So yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it's a regular enough occurrence that if somebody does it, then it's not like it's not surprising. It's a gig story, but it's not like, oh my God, what happened? And so for me personally, when you see something like this get, and I don't want to say justified, but it certainly wasn't lambasted in the way that it should have been. Do you know what I mean? It was the Academy does not condone violence. But congratulations to Will Smith on his Oscar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To see something like this go unpunished on a large scale, you can't help but think people are going to think that that's okay.
I don't think they are. So I think one of my kind of position on it is like neither of them come out of this looking good, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because so if we row back a bit,
I think Chris Rock comes out of it looking brilliant.
So boy can take a slap. I'm impressed by that. Like didn't really lose his stride or anything.
Mate,
like just.
Do you know what?
Carried on.
I thought the way that Chris Rock dealt with it. I've never been a huge fan of Chris Rock stand-up, to be honest with you. But I mean, I think it's iconic, but it's not the sort of thing that I'd choose to listen to. I thought the way that he dealt with it was superb. In that he had his arms behind his back. He was like, I'm not trying to fight you. I'm not being a threat or anything like that. He took the slap. He didn't go down. He didn't make a big deal of it. He let it sit. It was Will Smith was, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. He said, it was a G.I. Jane joke. And he, keep your wife's name out your fucking mouth. And he went, wow, okay. And then you could see, or at least I think I see, if you watch it back, and I've watched it 1,000 times, I watched a little glint in his face. He goes, like that. And I swear to God, that's the face of a man that has just thought of the best fucking comeback. And he's like, no. He goes, okay, the next one. And then he carries on, he lets it go, and he doesn't file a police report afterwards. And I think that what he's done is in all of his actions, he's minimised what would happen.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but respect for that.
His reaction afterwards, sure.
Yeah.
But so if we roll back to like the different type of jokes that have been made about Jada and Will.
Yeah.
So one of the things you're pointing out was like Amy Schumer
Yeah.
was doing jokes about how much she cheats on him.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a few issues with that to begin with.
Okay.
Because I'm not an expert on their relationship, but from what I understand, there's an element of non-monogamy to it. Like it's not completely. So there's a difference between cheating and ethical non-monogamy, right?
Okay.
Because like ethical non-monogamy means that like you have your partner's consent.
If you say
basically.
ethical non-monogamy one more time, I'm going to go do 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 do.
Does it work though?
No.
I think there's too many syllables.
Yeah, there is, but it's just in my head. That's so by ethical.
If I reduce it to its initials though, like
EMG.
ENM.
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 Do 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 do.
ENM.
Do 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 do. It's so much fun.
There you go.
So by ethical non-monogamy, God, that is a mouthful to say. And it's ethical, gets out the way really quick, but then non-monogamy is like
Yeah.
It's just so many O's and
It's
A's.
a lot of consonants.
Yeah. Vowels is what eats
it's
it up.
all vowels.
Yeah.
Ethical
non.
I thought if it's the M and N's.
Oh no, it's the om-nom-noms that gets me. It's the om-nom-noms.
Anyway.
Too many om-nom-noms. By that you just mean like swingers, essentially. No.
Sorry. It's a bit of a... So there's... No, fuck off.
Keep my wife's relationships out your fucking mouth.
So it's an umbrella term that takes in a lot of things.
Okay.
So there's swinging,
Yeah.
which is very much about sex. That's kind of the level that's at.
Yeah.
There's open relationships where it's like, okay, you can go sleep with other people, but don't go forming relationships with them. Generally, that's the rule.
Polyamorous.
And then there's polyamory, where it's like juggling multiple meaningful relationships that aren't necessarily about sex.
Couldn't do that. I don't know how people do it.
It's basic. Google Calendar is very important if you're going to do that. Like, the biggest nightmare is the admin.
It's more of a logistical issue rather than anything else, you know. So it's why I always have differently coloured labels on the calendar. So Greg knows when Stephen's time is, and Stephen knows that he's going to stop on fucking Bob's time. I couldn't think of a third name. I panicked and couldn't think
Also,
of a third
it's
name.
weird. Like, that's weirdly close to how some people do it.
Really?
Like, just, yeah, Google Calendars sort of, like, having to...
And they share it as well?
Yeah.
Dear God. I mean, I don't know how you'd... Oh, mate. So, like, I couldn't get into the mindset where I'd be, like, texting somebody that I was in a relationship with, and she'd be like, oh, I'm just out fucking John. And you're like, all right, have a good time. Guess I'll see you tomorrow then. I just couldn't do that.
It's just one way of doing relationships. It's not something that works for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people it works for, some people it really doesn't.
Yeah.
So, like, there's no kind of, like, it's not, oh, monogamy's the only way, or polyamory's the only way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with either of those stances. Like, yeah, for some people, whatever, you know.
Yeah. But, I mean, I wonder if it's like... So, I wonder if it's like... All right, okay. So, here's the thing, right, is John is a laugh to be around. Me and him... We just click, you know. Great guy. Really enjoy his company. Steve is a lovely fella, very caring, more serious. I have my deep chats with Steve. He's a financial provider as well. He makes plenty of money. And fucking Paul has got that devil dick. Do you know what I like, I wonder if that's how they do it. Or is it just like each one of them is just nice but not like... Do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder whether or not they're trying to make the perfect relationship by picking and choosing parts of different men that they like, or women, or partners, or whatever, or whether or not they're doing it to, like, they like each of them, but it's just the lifestyle that they lead. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's... So each person is going to be different, right?
Yeah.
So I can't really sit here and go, well, polyamorous people...
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like, they can't...
Yeah.
Like...
The generalization
Like, I think-
thing, I'll do that.
So from the people that I know,
Yeah.
the philosophy of it for them
Yeah.
is certainly kind of like, my partner is not my possession. It's not up to me to tell them who else they can spend time with or how they spend that time. None of my business.
I mean...
Like, if
yeah.
that's what... Like, and if they're finding something or someone else that makes them happier, then I support that.
Oh, no, I don't like that, mate.
That's not to say that they don't feel jealousy.
Yeah.
Like, a big part of, like, doing non-monogamous relationships is is, like, trying to get control of that jealousy. And understand that...
Would you want to meet them? Would you want to meet the other ones? It's not healthy to meet them, is it?
Some people do, some people don't.
Oh, I
Well,
don't know.
So
I'd want to not know. Is he bigger than me?
it depends whether you see that other person as competition or as somebody else who also happens to love someone you love.
Yeah, maybe I'm just sort of too... I mean, the thing is I am somebody who is absolutely not a jealous partner. I'm not that person, and I'm like, you go do whatever makes you happy. I don't put any demands on relationships about what people should look like or whether or not they should keep themselves in a certain, you know, shape, or whether or not they should do certain things or not do certain things, or, you know, whatever makes you happy, you go for it, because I love you and it's you that I love, whatever form that takes, you know what I mean? But I draw the line with sharing you with other people. Like, for me personally, that's the only thing that I go, nah, I can't. Nah.
Yeah,
I
and that's
couldn't do
absolutely
it.
fine. And if both of the people in the relationship feel that way, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, we could probably do a whole podcast episode on all of that. I'd need to do some reading.
Let's get someone in.
And
Let's get like a...
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So anyway, first I'll see how people react to just the concept of it. But
What, coming on and chatting?
So a lot of people have that kind of negative response to even just the idea of ethical non-monogamy. It's like, well, that's just cheating, like, which is kind of the issue with all those jokes that I have. It's like if it's an ethical, non-monogamous relationship and they had that agreement, then no, she wasn't cheating.
Well, I think
stop conflating ethical non-monogamy with cheating, because it's very fucking different.
I'm about 80% that she just straight up cheated on him.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't know and he forgave her, and that was like a thing. Do you know what I mean? So I'm about 80% sure. I'm not massive. I couldn't tell you absolutely certainly, because I don't read Heat magazine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does seem like the kind of thing that'd be covered in the middle pages of a fucking newspaper, and it's not really what I'm into. But I seem to recall to the point where I'm quite sure that she actually cheated on him, and it was a thing, and she was getting like much younger rappers round, and and stuff like that. But like, I get that that's a very personal joke.
Yeah.
So why did he not kick off at her?
So there's another thing that, like, something else that I've been seeing as a fallout of this is people on Twitter, like including women, saying, "Oh, Will Smith should have smacked his wife instead of Chris Rock because of all the cheating." It's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's not a great...
Like, that's not a good take.
The problem isn't the recipient of the violence. That's a really weird way of looking at it. But I will tell you this, though, is if it comes out in 5 years' time or whatever that Will Smith is found guilty of spousal abuse or something like that, none of us as a fucking global species can go, oh, no. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that if somebody is so short-fused that they will think nothing of slapping somebody in front of the whole world, I think that
Okay, so that I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
And I can see the logic there. But I can also see how it being on stage and being broadcast around the world would actually be an aggravating factor there. Mm-hmm. Like, because his wife has just been, Jada, somebody he cares about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, because she's not just his wife, right?
Yeah,
like, that's not her whole identity.
I know.
But anyway, that's a different.
I know.
No, it's just an easy way to say it.
Yeah, but also as well though, with regards to that, like, Will Smith is infinitely more famous than Jada Pinkett Smith is. If you ask my granddad who Will Smith is, he'll know. If you ask him who Jada Pinkett Smith is, he won't have any idea.
Yeah.
He's infinitely more successful and has had a better, more successful career. And I wouldn't be able to tell you who Will Smith's wife was before last week. Okay. So I think his wife is like, yes, she is her own person. But also as well, I think you sort of what's the word? You sort of what's the fucking word? You sort of reset. I mean, that's not the word, but I'm just
default.
Default. Yeah. You as if I couldn't think of the word default. Thank you, Dr. Cat Ford, for helping me think of the word default.
Sometimes words just disappear.
You default into the most like famous, and then your relation. So that's why, for example, Oprah's husband. Like, I'd say Oprah Winfrey's husband or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
I didn't mean that to come across as telling you off.
No,
for
I
doing
think it's
it.
interesting.
It was like, I'm trying to train myself not to do that.
I
get
people,
what you're saying, but also I don't want to talk about her as if she's just his wife.
Well, did you see? Do you know who Sophie Hagen is?
Yes, I'm aware.
So Sophie Hagen,
I've not seen much of their work.
Sophie is a comic who I used to be very, very good mates with, and then we sort of like stopped being mates. But she had, and pronouns are he, she, they, by the way, so you can mix it up as much as you like. You can mix it up as much as you want. With
I try to go with they whenever I'm unsure.
Oh, really? yeah.
It's just something I'm trying to train myself to do.
Well, I find it really interesting because I saw the Twitter profile and it was like pronouns are he, she, they, and I was like, well, you don't need to tell me then, because I would have chosen one of them. like I wouldn't have gone left field and gone she.
Lizard.
Yeah. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me try and read it out. Because it is an incredibly weird take that I think loads of people have kind of rightly been a bit backlashy about, and it's doing exactly what you sort of said, like I'm trying not to do. So she put, I think that Will Smith should wait, and then he puts in asterisks, looks at hands. Oh, hang on, I'm quite white, so maybe I don't need to have an opinion on what a black man did to another black man because of what he said about his black wife. Maybe I should just shut up and listen. And that has got a fairly negative response amongst a lot of comics who are people of colour who I know, who are like, wait, what? Like, names, you know what I mean? Like, her name's Jada. It's not his black wife. That's especially for somebody who's marketing themselves as being super progressive in all of their views and stuff. His black wife isn't a great fucking look. So anyone can fall into that trap, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, possibly something that we could have a completely different discussion about. Like, I think it's fine to like highlight to people like, oh, this is possibly the more progressive way of doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody slips up on that, like, I'm not in favour of going, oh, well, you're clearly a cunt. Like, like this, like, I think the majority of people aren't going around going, what is the worst fucking thing I could say to this person? What's the most damage I can do in this interaction? I don't think that's true of people. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's
but it is true of people on Twitter.
Well, yeah. And occasionally comedians.
Yeah. Well,
so
brings us to the joke. I mean, is that joke crossing a line? I don't think it is.
So, it's a crap joke. Like, it's not a great joke.
No, but it's the Oscars, and he wrote it like it's not like he's had months polishing it on the circuit. It's all new material. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not all bankers.
No. So one of the things about, like, I was coming back to what Amy Schumer had said.
Yeah.
Is there's a difference between taking the piss out of somebody's actions and behaviour and choices and their appearance.
Okay.
Like, she has lost her hair because of alopecia. Mm-hmm. And I get what you're saying, but losing your hair,
yeah,
for some people that can be an absolutely huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for women. Mm-hmm. And especially for black women, black women's hair is hugely politicized.
Okay.
Like
dreadlocks and things, and
not just that, just generally. So here's another thing that makes me think, oh, Chris Rock should not have done that fucking joke.
Yeah.
Is back in like 2007.
Yeah.
Chris Rock did a documentary called Good Hair.
Yeah, okay.
Which is like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like, of him talking to people.
Yeah.
Specifically talking to black women and black men.
Yeah.
About black women's hair and about how much it matters.
So,
like, I don't think
that would
it's a difficult one. There's lots of problems with that documentary as well.
That would make me think that he is somebody who's very knowledgeable about it, and if he feels comfortable in making that joke, then he's made an assessment that it's not that bad.
Okay, but that's not for him to decide. The only person who can decide how upsetting it is to have their hair loss pointed out is the person whose hair loss it is.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's kind of come out of all of this debate is it's odd how absolutist people are about, especially about physical violence.
Yeah.
And sort of like, oh, well, it's just words versus, oh, that was a hit.
Yeah.
Like, there are some, like, circumstances, like, where things that are said to you hurt so much more than a slap.
Sure, but again, I don't think that that's in a context of comedy. So I think that sometimes things that are said hurt so much more. Those things are said in anger, they're said in violence, they're said in arguments they're said in, I think being said in a roast when you've consented to be there and you've consented to be roasted, I don't think those words hurt as much as a slap.
So in the position of a roast, where like you have signed up to that.
And that's what the Oscars is.
Okay, I don't know enough either way to argue with you in either direction.
It's taken the tone of the last 15 years where that's what's expected now.
Yeah.
So everyone there is expected that they're going to have the piss taken out of them in a roast scenario. So she knows full. I can't think of a possible eventuality where Jada Pinkett Smith is going into the Oscars with a shaved head and going, well, I don't think anyone's going to mention this. I think it's par for the course. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if she's that upset about it, there's so many things that you can do beforehand as a preemptive thing to stop that from being a thing. So I think that, for example, Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock know each other. He's been a guest on her show several times. I don't think it's too hard to reach out to the organisers of the Oscars or to the people and say, look, I'm going to come, obviously, because my husband's going to win an Oscar, but this is a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know what this place is like. Yo.
Yeah, she has been very vocal about going through alopecia.
But there's 400 people in that room. There's 500 people in the room. Do you know what I mean?
But you've just said that they're friends. They know each other.
Well, maybe it's you could see the piss take. So I think myself, sometimes I will take the piss out of people that have had horrific things happen to them, and them laughing at it is great for them because it's like, I'm over it. I'm able to laugh at it. So they feel like there's closure on it. Do you know what I mean?
So you're doing a service.
I'm actually doing God's work, Actually, taking the piss out of those terminally ill people was God's work, And I will accept my Pride of Britain award in the post, PO box, send it wherever the complaints go. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but people.
But again, so I'm assuming when you make those kind of jokes, it's either like it's with somebody who you've got a decent amount of rapport with.
No, it can be with audience members sometimes. But because the thing is I always find with audience members,
you can judge it though, can't you?
Totally. But I always find with audience members is they give you the information that they are comfortable with you taking the piss out of. So I had one person literally in a show just before like the first COVID. BC, before COVID, who was terminally ill and had a brain condition or had a rare brain condition or whatever, and let me rip into them for about 10 minutes and was so funny about it and so sort of like, loved it because they are sick of people taking them to one side and being like, you're so stunning. You're so brave. You're so amazing. They want to be treated like people, not like, patronised almost. Now, I'm not saying that that's the same with Jada Pinkett Smith, but I'm saying that just because she's vocal about her alopecia doesn't mean that she's going to react negatively to a joke about it.
But also just because she's open about it doesn't mean that she's going to react positively to a joke about it.
But you would imagine the fact that she's there, the fact that she knows what the Oscar's about, she's shaved her head, you'd imagine that I just think maybe this is some sort of weird, almost sort of victim blaming on my part, as it were, in that I'm like, but I can't see an eventuality where somebody like that, who's been to loads of these before, who knows exactly what it is, who comes in with a shaved head, and then when somebody makes, let's be fair, a fairly bland reference to it. She didn't go, all right, Kojak. Do you know what I mean? It was like G.I. Jane. Do you know what I mean? It's not the worst thing in the world. I can't imagine that to be like a total fucking, absolute destroyer for her.
Totally, but also it wasn't her that got up and did the slap.
Well, that's really interesting as well.
So even though we're talking a lot about how does she feel about it? I think it's worth talking about simply because I think so. I feel like people take overly hard lines on either side.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't think you can go around saying whatever you want to say to whoever you want to say under the guise of it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're doing stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
I still don't think that, like, you should still be mindful about what you're saying and who you're saying it about and the
How?
potential impact that
How could you possibly do that?
no, but just like it's just that simple rule of thumb of like, am I punching down with that joke?
I hate that term
Okay.
with a passion.
Right.
I don't believe in it as a concept.
Okay.
So I think the idea of punching up and punching down is based on the idea that people are higher or lower in a social hierarchy and you should only punch upwards and never downwards. First of all, who is it for me to say that I'm higher up a social hierarchy than other people? Secondly, it works really easy if you use it as a rule to tell straight white men what they can and can't say. You punch up, but you can't punch down. How do you decide what a disabled person of colour can say? How do you decide where they are on that punching up and punching down scale? It's not possible. Secondly, I think that the skill is in punching down and getting away with it.
Okay.
Because if you ask me to make a joke about Boris Johnson on stage in front of 50 people, in front of people. I don't know why 50 is important. The number's not important. If you ask me to make jokes about him, I can do it all day because it's really easy to make Boris Johnson jokes. I could go on stage and say Boris Johnson's a cunt, and people go hooray, meh, because it's really easy to punch up. Try punching down.
That's
and
only
away
part
with it.
of it.
Well,
Like,
sorry?
So that's only part of creating a good joke is like who your target is. But,
Sure, but
there is also a lot of skill in writing a joke that mocks Boris Johnson that hasn't been done and is clever and is still funny.
Sure, because it's so easy to punch up that everyone sees that as the easier option. If you give me two fucking targets to write jokes about, and one of them is Prince Andrew, and the other one is I don't know, who can I think of that is somebody who Harvey Price, right? And if you give me those two targets to do jokes about, I can write loads of jokes about both of them, but I'll get away with every Prince Andrew joke.
Yeah.
So the skill is not in doing the Prince Andrew joke. There's no skill in that. The skill's getting away with the other one. But that's not to say that you should just punch up or just punch down. I think that you should be punch in all directions, but you should be mindful that when you punch down, it has to be 10 times better. And so for me, I don't like this idea of you should only do this, you should never do that. I think it's fraught with problems.
I can kind of see where you're coming from, but it then comes down to what you think the point of comedy is, right? Like,
Okay.
if you think the point of comedy is just making people laugh and that's it,
Yeah.
then everyone's a target.
Yeah.
But I don't. If it hasn't become clear, I'm a very sort of lefty, liberally kind of person, and so I think it matters like who you're targeting, like not just because of what good it can do to not target the wrong people, but also because of the harm it can, like genuine harm that it can cause to people if they're made and repeatedly made the butt of the joke.
Okay.
Like even if it's not directly them, but kind of a group they identify with, it can be harmful.
Sure, but also it can feel inclusive, because if you're taking the piss out of
It depends on the joke, right?
Sure,
Ultimately,
sure. But I mean, I will do jokes about everybody, and I think it's like I've done jokes about people with disabilities to people with disabilities who love it because it's the first time that they're not being treated differently. They're just being treated like one of your mates. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's patronising to say, like, I'll not do that because your feelings might be hurt. I think a lot of people just get on with it. Personally, my experiences is people who've had to put up with a lot in terms of their, you know, their identity and how they have to live their lives and stuff like that. They are impossible to offend. They are impossible because they have got such a thick, robust skin. They couldn't give a fuck what you say.
Think about
them.
who you're most likely to mix with, though.
Okay.
Like you're mixing with people on the comedy circuit. I'm mixing with people that go to your comedy gigs.
Okay.
Like they are gonna be like a certain type of person.
Sure.
Like they're not necessarily gonna be representative of everyone.
Sure.
Like I see what you're saying about.
And that in itself is the problem. Is how do you make comedy that's for everyone? You just can't.
Well, you can't.
You can't. And this is the thing. Is so what needs to happen is that look. From time to time, I know what I'm like as a comic, and my style is some more offensive stuff because that's what I find funny, and I can't really change that anytime soon. And occasionally there'll be people who, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm mindful about what I say, I'm mindful about what I write, but the whole skill behind that is going as close to the line as you can without stepping over
Yeah.
it. But occasionally you'll step over it, and you go, oh, fuck, I messed that up, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah.
But the thing is occasionally I'll get people who walk out of my show. I never call attention to it or take the piss or anything like that. I had some people come out of a show once. It was 3 young women. They came out of the show because I made a joke they weren't happy with, and then they confronted me, and they were like, we just want you to know that we left during that bit because we thought that was not on. And I was like, well, thanks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the most adult thing anyone can do in
Yeah.
that situation is to go, I don't like this. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I'm going to take myself away from this. Brilliant. I think that's such an adult thing to do. What is not the right thing to do is to go and fucking assault somebody. Do you know what I mean? So I honestly think that if Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith if he'd have done that joke and they'd have walked out, Chris Rock looks like a fucking knobhead.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's Will Smith, I think, that looks like the dickhead.
I still think they both look a bit dickheadish.
Here's
Will Smith probably more than Chris Rock.
Yeah.
But I think they both look a bit.
Here's the final one for you, the final question. And I found this one really interesting because this is the one bit about it that I don't know where I stand. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this, right? So, Will Smith comes up, you know, keep your wife's name out my fucking mouth. And what quite a lot of people are doing is they're going, this is quite, what's the word? Sort of misogynistic.
Yeah, there is a misogynistic element about it because, like, I get it because it's a man fighting on behalf of his woman.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like.
I challenge thee to a duel, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a shame Jamie's not here because she'd probably talk about like benevolent sexism right now.
Oh, right,
It's that whole
okay.
thing of like women need to be protected by their men.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And it's like,
I love you so much and you're incapable of doing anything.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Do you know what?
so there's definitely that element to it.
I
as
see
well.
benevolent sexism so
Oh,
much.
yeah.
So much. Like, I actually myself see benevolent sexism more than I see regular sexism. So I can't remember the last time that I saw some guy be like, whoa, you knew it was a woman driving that because you couldn't get in the parking space, but hey.
I can hear a harp in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
background.
But
Oh, the good old days.
I see so much, like, especially online and stuff, like, listen, I love women so much. I'm such an ally that this lady's going to shut the fuck up while I speak on her behalf.
Yeah.
I see that so much.
It's another like really tricky one though, right? Because so I definitely have benevolent sexism happen at me
Yeah.
all the time, and sometimes it's like they don't mean any harm by it.
Yeah.
If if it was really bad and I really needed to call them up on it, I would.
Yeah.
But when it's just things like So like before I went to go do my Viva, I got a taxi to the train station,
Yeah.
and the driver was like, "So where are you going, love?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, just the train station, please." Like, "Are you going anywhere nice, love?" I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm going down to London. I'm gonna go defend my thesis. It's my Viva, and if it goes well, I'll be a doctor at the end." And he's like, "Oh, right, okay, that
Drinks with
sounds
the girls.
nice."
Drinks with the girls, is it then, love?
Well, then, when the taxi got to the station and we got out, he went, "Okay, then, my little love." It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he means no harm. It like calling someone love. Sometimes it's just a verbal tick.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm not about to rip someone's throat out over
Yeah.
that. It's like, it's annoying.
Yeah.
Like, so, there's different levels of it. So that's something that's like massively one of my feelings about all of this is there's just such an extreme lack of nuance everywhere.
If, let's say you were on a night out, right, with some friends, right, and a pissed guy was being very verbally abusive to you, and you were out with some friends, some were women, some were men, right, and this pissed guy was being really nasty. He was like, those eyebrows are shit, love, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever insecurity you have, he was really fucking going for it.
So
do you know
that
what
was
I
just great watching the cogs turn and like what nasty thing can I say to illustrate what a nasty man might say?
Yeah, I don't know.
That isn't going to cause me problems.
Oh, those lower molars look less developed. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Oh, it shows your tits.
Yeah,
Go on.
yeah.
Oh, I'll give you a $5, like that kind of.
So, and it was going on. Would you have a expectation that one of the guys in your group would sort of get rid of him?
Me personally, no.
Okay.
Like, partly because of who I spend time with,
Yeah.
and partly because, like, I can probably throw a punch better than most of my male mates, right? If I actually needed to.
It's because doctors are pussies. male doctors are pussies. That's unless I need one to help me
it's
at any
another
point.
thing that we could completely unpack is like, so why is the female genitalia associated with weakness and like you're the worst?
I just
anyway,
think
but let's
pussies is
leave
a
that.
funny word.
I hate it.
Do you?
Oh no!
I just think it's a funny word to be like, oh, you pussy.
the hiss on it, I think, is what
No,
makes
I like
me go.
the p bit. I like the p.
So I really like twat and cunt because they're double explosives. Like they've got that noise
To me,
at the beginning and end. But
twat has a squelching quality to it. It's like standing in a muddy
Twat.
puddle. Twat.
cunt's much more crunchy.
Welcome to the Swear Word ASMR podcast. Today we are
But
talking
we should so do that. I do.
crunchy cunt.
Squelchy twat.
Do you know what? That, honestly, in my earphones, that was really good. That was that was the most delicious squelchy twat I've ever been a part of. So okay,
I'll put that on my CV.
so there is a bit of a bit that he was like, you should have just fucking let her deal with it how she wanted to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, there's all sorts. Like I've seen, like some psychologists write really long things about like that. To me, looks like a trauma response that Will Smith has gone through, and then like there's the history of like Will Smith. His family was the victim of domestic abuse, and there's a section in his autobiography where he talks about this day where he saw his dad punch his mum in the side of the head, and she fell to the floor and blood started coming out of her mouth. And he goes on to say, like, everything he does, all the work he does and everything he tries to achieve, he feels like in some part is motivated by trying to make up for not protecting her on that moment.
Right. Okay.
I think this is the big thing. Like we're not talking about like 2D characters here. We're talking about human beings with complex histories, with complex stuff going on in their heads, and we've all like boiled it down to a slap for a bad joke.
I'd say myself, like knowing that, you know, I being critical, I'd say he's honouring the memory of his dad more than he's honouring the memory of his mum in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like that's not to say that therefore he should get off scot-free. Like motivation and results matter, like with human interactions all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you know what I see though? Like looking at it through a comedian's eyes, right? Is he tells the joke, Chris Rock, G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. And Will Smith laughs, and she has a face like thunder. She looks pissed off.
Yeah.
He looks at her, sees that she's pissed off, and he's like, wait a minute. How dare you? And I honestly see that reaction loads. They think it's funny, but then when the person that they're with doesn't think it's funny, they go, well, this... And what they do is they overreact to try and overcompensate for finding it funny. And I think that's what's happened myself.
Possibly. That's possibly it. Maybe it plays into that narrative of him not protecting his mum and sort of he's done nothing / done the polite thing of laughing and gone, oh shit. Like there are so many different ways of interpreting it, but the only people that know what went on inside everyone's heads is the people living in those heads, right?
And I'll tell you what, Twitter does some of its best and worst work during something like this, because some of the jokes that I have seen on Twitter, mate, I saw somebody put, fair play to Will Smith, Jada is going to let him watch so hard tonight. I was like, well, that was a great joke. You don't like it.
No, because it boils, the joke's about like her either cheating on him or like it's about her sleeping with somebody else.
But it is
like,
kind of funny though. It is, you know what I mean? No.
It's not my cup of tea.
Oh, right, okay. I enjoyed it.
Humour is subjective.
It's going to be the title of my next comedy special. Humour is subjective.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Tell us what you think in the YouTube comments, guys. God, I feel like such a fucking fanny. I feel like such a...
Ball bag. There you
when
go.
I say that. You see, I'm learning. I feel like such a crunchy cunt when I say that. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments and stuff, and tell us, are you pro Will Smith? Are you pro Christopher Rock? Would you ever punch a comedian? If so, why? Before we go, we've got a Patreon as well. Please sign up to our Patreon, because we're going to be really looking at how we do it, how we can put the best value for money on. It's £4 a month, and we need Patreons to make sure that the podcast can keep going, so that it pays for the equipment and the editing and the studio and stuff like that. We record extra content. We get loads of extra stuff out there, so you get extra episodes every single week. You get discounts and access to things that other people don't get. And it's a way of supporting the podcast that's next to no money for you, but makes a big difference to ourselves. Before we go, is there anything that you want to plug? Dr. Cat Ford.
Yep. So I do stuff with Skeptics in the Pub online. Which is where we have kind of free lectures from various experts talking about their thing. And so check out sitp.online. Also check out The Skeptic UK magazine and stuff by the Merseyside Skeptic Society. So, yeah.
And I'm going to also plug a podcast of mine, a new one called Dead Men Talking. It is just very rude, disgusting, vulgar filth that will absolutely get me in trouble at some point. But until then, happy days, riding the gravy train of depravity. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. We're back, baby. Boom. Bye.
This podcast has been sponsored by Outlier Distillery. They are the makers of the fantastic Hooley Manx White Rum, which is available right now on the Outlier Distillery website for just £34. And there's an extra discount code for everyone that listens to this podcast. Just enter Pigoted at checkout and you get yourself 20% off. Now, this was a company that was actually started in lockdown, and they make some fantastic drinks. I am a huge fan of this Hooley Manx White Rum. As you can see, I've drunk nearly most of it already. It's a really strong flavour and it goes great in cocktails and daiquiris and rum and cokes. So if you are a big drinker, if you're a fan of alcohol and you like white rum, then get yourself down to Outlier Distillery's website and get your code 20% off by entering Pigoted at checkout. This episode of Pigoted Podcast was sponsored by Taylor's Toys. Now, for OG listeners of the show, you'll know Taylor's Toys. They've been sponsoring us since the beginning. They are a sex toy company that specialise in making high quality produce, like you grow it. You know, they make good products that don't fall apart after a couple of uses, but they're at decent, reasonable prices as well. You can head over to taylorstoys.co.uk right now, check out the amazing range that they've got on offer, and if you enter the discount code PIGOTED at checkout, you get 20% off and you get free delivery on orders over £25. It is a fantastic thing to do, especially with Valentine's Day just round the corner. Head yourself over to taylorstoys.co.uk and spice some things up in the bedroom.